Thank you for this very exciting series of talks and for inviting me as a discussant. Let me start by breaking down the title and main theme of this symposium: how cognition develops in contexts that are social. So there has been a lot of work examining how the characteristics of the situations we're in impact adults' cognition, reasoning, decision-making. And I just would like to pay here a little tribute to my former supervisor, Gerd Gigerenza, by briefly presenting the bounded and ecological rationality framework. This framework promotes an understanding of rationality as a match between the mental abilities of a subject and the structure of the environment in which the subject acts. These are the two blades of a pair of scissors, as described metaphorically by Herbert Simon. This perspective allows to overcome the general view of adults' rationality as faulty and biased, proposing that what is rational should not be evaluated against a fixed optimal benchmark based on abstract calculations, but needs to take into account the characteristics of the individual and of the context. In this sense, what has been considered bias or wrong may make total sense after all. This perspective is particularly interesting, I think, when reflecting about cognition from a developmental perspective. Indeed, it suggests that to capture children's early and developing competence, we need, on the one hand, to design child-friendly, age-appropriate, and assumptions-transparent paradigms, but on the other hand, we also need to focus on children's adaptiveness, that is, on their effectiveness and success, not measured against optimality or against adults' performance only. One must acknowledge that the effectiveness and efficiency of children's cognitive strategies cannot be measured in absolute terms. Rather, the effectiveness and efficiency of these strategies crucially depends on the characteristics of the task at hand and on the available resources, as well as on the learner's prior knowledge and expectations. So in my prior work, I have focused on what I deem to be one of the crucial aspects of learning, ecological active learning, that is defined as the ability to actively explore and learn by recognizing and exploiting the ecology, that is, the particular structure and characteristics of a learning environment. So to maximize efficiency and effectiveness of their learning, children must detect these characteristics and dynamically adapt their strategies to these characteristics. So the ecological learning framework is the first to apply the ecological rationality perspective to the investigation of the emergence and developmental trajectory of cognitive and learning strategies across the lifespan. This framework suggests that learning strategies are not good or bad a priori, but are like tools in the toolbox. No strategy is suitable for all problems, just like different tasks call for different tools. And even more important, it implies that children who have limited cognitive and computational resources can be as successful or potentially even more successful than adults by recognizing the statistical structure of the environment and then exploiting that structure by promptly adapting their strategies to it. So my work, very briefly, has shown that efficient adaptive search strategies emerge much earlier than previously assumed. Children adapt their search and learning strategies depending on the likelihood distribution across the hypotheses considered. And recent work presented at this conference by Francesco Poli somewhere last year, and that will be presented by Daniil Serko tomorrow, shows that the foundations of this adaptiveness are present already by 2 years of age. And also the informativeness of certain actions drives their motivation, such that they're more likely to persist in a task when there is higher uncertainty, therefore more information to gain with their actions. And Oana Stanchi presented some relevant ongoing work on this theme yesterday at the poster session. But analyzing how cognition develops in social context, which is the theme of the symposium, is particularly interesting and critical. As Josh mentioned in the introduction, children's developing cognition is often studied in individual settings, non-social contexts, but most of our cognition happens in social contexts. So the work presented as part of the symposium has demonstrated the impact of social environments on key aspects of children's reasoning. First, the findings from Meyer and colleagues exemplify how social context can support and enhance cognition, And in particular, they indicate that already 3-year-old children who consistently fail to demonstrate metacognitive abilities in standard non-social paradigms demonstrate competence when the task is embedded in a social, cooperative, and communicative context. So more general, the idea here could be that social context may help making some task goals more clear, relatable, salient, thus implicitly supporting children's accuracy and efficiency. Second, the work presented suggests how even young children are sensitive to goals that are fundamentally social. For example, the work from Katz and colleagues demonstrates an early emergence of children's understanding of their own and others' reputation, and systematically demonstrate more positive evaluations of partners who improve their social standing. Third, and related, the work presented also generally highlights the crucial importance of accounting for the social context when evaluating children's reasoning and cognition. This is amplified by the work presented by Josh and colleagues that found that group membership influences how children form and revise their beliefs already from age 4. So all in all, this work contributes to a growing body of research showing how social context, in addition and beyond epistemic context, impact the kind of strategies and choices adults and children at different ages make. Along these lines, I wanted to briefly mention some recent work together with Sebastian Gruneisen, Gina Torok, and Anshari Vatyagedon. We presented 4 to 7-year-olds with 3 partners with different positive qualities: a generous, a knowledgeable, and a fast agent. Children then recruited partners for hypothetical tasks that differ with respect to the quality necessary for success. A knowledge task, a speed task, and the generosity task. The generosity task was basically a dictator's game where children had to decide which partner will be given resources and the power to decide how to share these resources with a participant. And we found that from age 5, children selectively chose individuals in possession of task-relevant qualities as cooperative partners while avoiding them as competitors. So these results show that children learn to strategically adjust the partner choice depending on context-specific task demands and different social goals. And I suggest you also a little advertisement to take a look at Oana Stanch's poster tomorrow, in which she explores how the composition of a social group, that is the way in which the group acquire and aggregate information, impacts the perceived quality of the advice coming from the group. Social contexts also impact children's willingness and persistence to act. And here I want to briefly mention the work of Julia Leonard, now at Yale, which I think is very relevant for this point. Her findings suggest that seeing just 2 examples of an adult working really hard to achieve her goals can lead 15-month-old infants to work harder on a novel task relative to infants who see an adult succeed without any effort. So these results overall suggest that adult models, the presence of an adult, the modeling of an adult, causally affect infants' persistence, and that infants can generalize the value of persistence to novel tasks. And the second work of Julia I want to mention, in this work, Julia found that children aged 4 and 5 years assigned to a taking over condition, so basically a condition in which adult senses somehow the inability of the child to solve a task and immediately takes over, saying like, I think this is too hard for you, let me do it. These children persist less on a subsequent task compared to those in a teaching condition or to a baseline condition in which the adult just takes turns with the child. So our contexts shape our motivations, and in turn our goals and motives modulate not only what information we're willing to gather, how much information we're willing to gather, or the information strategies we adopt for gathering, but also potentially the efficiency of the strategies we implement. And here I want to point to the work of Owen Jimenez. He will present this work at this poster session later today, so I'm just gonna present the results real quick. Participants here were, you should have not seen that. Just delete that. Participants were pseudo-randomly assigned to one of two experimental conditions in which they were told their town was competing in a long-standing sport competition with a rival town. And they were assigned from a team from the onset, either red or blue, and after the initial introduction, they were told that their team had won, the winning condition, or that their team had lost, the losing condition. And participants in both conditions were then informed that the awarded trophy was missing, terrible, and if not found, the organizers will cancel the event and no winner would be declared. So no trophy to be won. Which obviously would be bad for the winning team, but would be kind of convenient for the losing team, right? So participants were then informed that someone had witnessed the theft of the trophy, and they had the opportunity to investigate by talking to the witness. And the witness identifies a nearby group of people, here's the picture, stating that they saw the thief running into that group. And then participants were asked to select one of three questions to ask the witness. A maximally informative question, which partitioned a group of potential targets in two equally sized groups. In this case, was the thief wearing shoes? A minimal informative question, that was the second choice, which creates the most uneven split among the potential targets. So in this case, does the thief wear a hat, right? And then a moderately informative question, does the thief wear glasses? So the results here show that beyond the developmental trajectory in their ability to select the most informative questions, adults, adolescents, and children actively bias their search strategies, choosing more or less efficient questions as they account for potential consequences, benefits, or fallouts of their information search behavior. So in particular, they are more likely to select the most efficient question, which is in blue here, when they're more motivated to identify the target because they were winning and they don't want the event to be canceled. More at Juan's poster session later. So to conclude, more work is needed to map how children's cognition is influenced and even shaped by social context. Their peculiar characteristics and goals, their value and importance, that these characteristics and goals have at different stages of development, their different dynamics in terms of uncertainty and variability, generalizability and predictability. And future work should also investigate the impact of virtual social contexts, social media and virtual assistants, on children's cognition and reasoning, as this work, I think, is still just at the beginning, whereas I realize more and more how very, very young children are really very avid users of social media already. And I also want to stress the importance of studying how children use social environments not only to learn about the world, but to learn how to learn about the world. So choosing not only more reliable and knowledgeable informants or sources of information, but also choosing role models who can illustrate and teach them how to successfully navigate the social and physical world. And finally, I think it's already time for us to start thinking about how these results we've been discussing and presenting today can be leveraged to design environments and interventions that support and enhance children's cognitive development in social contexts and beyond. Thank you.